Good afternoon. We've dissected the Indian team and the selection dilemma and the happy headache for the Indian team management leading up to the Test series against England, which starts at the Chipok from Friday. But hey, guys, England are here and they are a strong team, right? They're coming off this really special series win in Sri Lanka where Joe Root dominated the Sri Lankan spinners. You had James Anderson perform so well. So we've done something interesting for you today. We've asked our experts, Pragyan Ojha and Deep Dasgupta, to come up with a few players who they think will pose the greatest threat for India in this Test series. But before we get there, here's a quick look at our sponsored video.
क्या आप भी किसी अपने सपने मेरे तुम्हारे टीम 11 पे टीम बना रहे हो और बच्चों के साथ खेल रहे हो? हमारे साथ खेलोगे? हाउस पे खेलो लेजेंड्स के साथ. हमें हराओ और जीतो डबल कैश. Log on to houseit.com and win real cash.
Right there. We've asked both Pragyan and Deep to list out the five players that threat for India. You know, there is also the World Test Championship points at stake. New Zealand having qualified for the final because Australia's tour to South Africa has been postponed. India and England are front runners. Australia with a slight outside chance. But gentlemen, it was a request for homework. But since you guys always ace cricket, you're always thinking cricket, drinking cricket. It wasn't. I don't know if it was that difficult for you. Pragyan, we'll start with your five, right? So if you can have that on the screen, there is Pragyan Ojha's key players for England for this first Test match: Joe Root, James Anderson, Stuart Broad, Ben Stokes, and Jack Leach. That one spinner there. So what Pragyan is essentially also telling us is that he thinks England will go with both Anderson and Broad in the first Test match. We've seen in the past that England have wanted to, rotate these guys. Pragyan, take it away with your.
No. I'll tell you why I picked these two guys is because of their experience. I'm talking about the total series, and if you look at Jack Leach, it's only because we have got. If you look at our top order batsmen, apart from Rishabh Pant, we have all the right-handers there. So for left-arm spinner becomes important. And Joe Root, yes, the way he's been batting, and he's one of that Fab Four that we always talk about in world cricket. And Anderson and Broad, I think they may not play together because they will be needing Jofra Archer. But I feel these two guys are more important. They have that experience of bowling in India and the Test match. Red ball cricket, yes, Jofra Archer has played, but he's played white ball cricket. If you talk about red ball cricket, these two guys will be a big threat to our batting lineup. And these five guys can challenge our boys. Challenge, I'm saying.
Yes, absolutely agree with you, Pragyan. I mean, it's difficult to imagine a Test series that England are playing without Anderson and Broad playing crucial roles if they have to win, no matter what the conditions are. And James Anderson was spectacular, wasn't he, in that second Test match? Yeah. But we'll quickly also take a look at Deep Dasgupta's top five players. There are two common players for the list that both Deep and Pragyan have given us: Joe Root and Ben Stokes. But Deep has also gone with Dominic Best, Jofra Archer, and Josh Butler. Obviously, yes, Deep, take it away.
Sorry, Raj, let me quickly give a caveat to that. This is only for the first Test because I just have a feeling that this series for England, there'll be a lot of rotation. You like Pragyan mentioned, you might not see Anderson and Broad playing together. Obviously, Josh Butler is only available for the first Test, and Bairstow comes in. So this is only for the first Test. And if I can have those names back on the screen, so Joe Root, he's going to be the key. End of the day, if Joe Root, England has to have half a chance. Joe Root has to have a better than an average series. You can't even have an average series. It has to be a good series, and the kind of form that he's in, 462 runs. Average of 106 against Sri Lanka, so double 100, 186. So that's that. Secondly, Ben Stokes for me, I think is someone who's a match winner. I know his numbers aren't that great. If you're going by just the numbers of Ben Stokes in Asia, it isn't that great. But I personally believe Ben Stokes post 2019 or starting from 2019 is a different kind of a player. He's a match winner, somebody who can win a game with the bat because he can dominate, and with the ball as well because he bowls a lot of those cross seam cutters. So on a surface, on a good batting surface, which might help the spinners a bit as well, those cutters becomes very, very important. Josh Butler. Okay, Josh Butler, again, for me, is someone who plays the spin very well and can dominate spin. So suddenly, coming at number 5 or 6, wherever he's going to bat, suddenly he has that ability to change a 250 into a 350 score. And he's in great form. He's got all the experience of playing in the subcontinent, the IPL, and everything else. He's in decent form. Played very, very crucial knock question in the second test against Sri Lanka. So Josh Butler, and he's keeping very well. I don't think I've seen him keep any better than what he did in Sri Lanka. Okay, now next is obviously Jofra Archer. Well, while obviously you need Stuart Broad and Anderson, one of them will play, and you obviously with all that experience between them, they have 1,000+ test wickets. That's going to be important. But the extra pace and bounce that Jofra Archer gets, I think on good batting surfaces, that is that X factor that might help someone like Jofra Archer. That extra bounce and he's like Shami, out of the blue, he'll bowl an unplayable delivery. So that's the ability that Jofra Archer has. Again, he's a match winner. Now, I think the most debatable name that list would be obviously Dominic Bess or Dom Bess, the off spinner. He's picked up wickets in Sri Lanka, but I'm not going by that. I don't think he's bowled really that well. But I just personally have a feeling that Indian batters, the top 6 batters, they have, I won't say struggle is the wrong word, but they are not, they haven't looked very comfortable playing the off spinner in the last few years. Starting, I mean, if you look at the dismissals as such, they've got out to an off spinner very often, more than they would have wanted. So that's the reason I think the off spinner is going to be very, very crucial, and I believe they would go with Dom Best. If Moeen Ali plays, then I would go with Moeen Ali. So whoever the off spinner is, I'm going to go with that because I just have a feeling that the off spinner. I mean, if you look at the last 4-5 years, Indian top order against off spin, whether it's Nathan Lyon, whether it's again the quality is different. Nathan Lyon, Moeen Ali in England. India has kind of got out. The top 6 have got out. They've batted well, but they've got out to off spinners a lot more. So for me, I think it's very important for the English off spinner to have a good series.
Absolutely. In fact, Deep pointed that out earlier in the morning when he's talked about India's top 6 against off spinners. We've got numbers for that, but we'll come to that later. But just before that, I wanted to touch on 2 segments. Yes, Pragya.
Yes, Deepak, whatever he's saying, if we go by the numbers and if we go by what is happening in world cricket, but if we see, there are not many left-arm spinners right now. That's the reason we are not getting numbers out there. Yes, it's a fact. Somebody, if he bowls regularly, if like we have 5 or 6 off spinners all over the world who are bowling against anybody, and they end up getting those wickets. But if you see left-arm spinners, apart from Jadeja or maybe 1 or 2 here and there, we haven't seen the way it was there. When I was there, it was Daniel Vittori. Then we had Rangana Herath from South Africa. We had
but you still, I mean,
the tall chap. Yeah. So
you have
no.
South Africa's playing 2 left-arm spinners. But if I may quickly counter what you're saying, from a batsman perspective as well, on a turner, I always found, or pitch that helps the spinners, I always found playing the off spinner a little more difficult.
No. I'm not trying to counter your thing. I'm just saying when we don't have left-arm spinners bowling, so you don't have the stats. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that Indians were not struggling against the off spinner. But we have not seen left-arm spinners bowl to our batsmen so much in recent past that we can decide on what they are against the left-arm spinners. Somehow I feel in India, the left-arm spinners who bowl those tight lines will be very successful. You look at Jadeja, Ashwin is exceptional, Nathan Lyon is exceptional. But if you talk about left-arm spinners, if you see the stats that Jadeja has, because he bowls those tight lines, if the wicket is not doing much, he's the one who gets you that important breakthrough. My point is that I'm not trying to say that Indians were very comfortable against the off spinners. They were little uncomfortable. But my point is, at present, there are not many left-arm spinners who are dominating, and there's no
Right,
stats,
right.
not too many stats.
Since we're already discussing the off spinners, before I come to England's conundrum around the openers, Deep and Pragyan, I just want to touch on a couple of on some numbers that we've dug out. If I produce it, can just flash that on the screen. From what you gentlemen have said, this is also the other factors. This is the top order batting averages versus off spinners. 58 for Rohit, 67 for Pujara, 55 for Kohli, in the 40s for both Rahane and Pant. Obviously, Pant's sample size is much smaller than the other 4 or 5. But gentlemen, here is another fact: is that the mode of dismissals for the top 6 is the second highest against off spinners, rather than after any other form of dismissal. But it also remains to be seen. Without these numbers, Pragyan, England don't have that wrist spin factor. How much of it is going to matter on pitches like Chennai and Ahmedabad, from what both of you've seen so far?
I was exactly coming there, Rajashida. See, if you look at the ODI white ball cricket, and then we talk about Virat Kohli, you'll see he's gotten out to a lot of leg spinners. But you also have to see how many leg spinners have bowled to him, and how many left-arm spinners have bowled to him, and how many off spinners have bowled to him. So if you see that in T20 cricket and one day, they use more of leg spinners against Virat. So obviously that number has to grow. At some point, Virat tries to dominate, or Rohit tries to dominate. The one gets the better of the other one. That's exactly what my point was. Yes, leg spinner is very important, but at the same time, you need someone who can. Red ball cricket is totally different. So you need someone who can bowl with that penetration and bowl that right line and length. That is also important. It's not a white ball cricket where you can just bowl 10 overs, or maybe T20 cricket 4 overs and you can get away. In red ball cricket, you have to be there asking the right question, like session after session. So that is important. They need someone who can bowl.
Deep, will that factor hurt England? Pragyan explained that really well. You have your take on the off spinners, but will that factor hurt England, the lack of wrist spinners, from the records and the numbers that you saw? And yes, the sample size is smaller when you look at recent times. I agree.
Right. But the other important thing is, it's not just having a wrist spinner. Whether you have quality is important. I mean, a lot of leg spinners or wrist spinners, I'd say, have done well in the shorter format because the batsman is trying to dominate. Right here, you have to. I mean, the bowler has to dominate. The bowler has to look to take wickets. Right. So it's more attacking bowling as compared to, let's say, white ball. It's comparatively a little more defensive. Right. So I think from that perspective, I think for 4-day, or as in rather red ball cricket, I don't know whether there are enough wrist spinners, quality wrist spinners for red ball cricket. White ball, yes, there are plenty, and there are all match winners there. So yeah, I mean, even though Adil Rashid, I mean, he was very influential the last time India toured England, more with the bat, but with the ball, he had an average series. And he's someone who's not very keen on playing the red ball cricket. That's the other important thing, because leg spinners are such a premium in white ball cricket and franchise cricket. Who wants? I mean, then obviously red ball cricket becomes at times might not be the first priority. So yeah, I mean,
same with Imran Tahir as well. The way he was looking when he was bowling with the white ball, if you compare him with the red ball, it looked very different. It looked like two different bowlers are bowling. So the point is, there are leg spinners with the white ball cricket, but red ball cricket is totally different. As Deepai and we were talking, that line and length is very important. In test match cricket, you cannot bowl that little bit shorter length and then get away. Right. Look at Yashir Shah, the way he's been bowling. He's picking wickets because of his line and length.
Yeah.
So that is more important. The temperament and the consistency you need to have.
Absolutely. In fact, I hope that answers your question. Saurav Manglani had this same question. Why no Adil Rashid? So I hope both Deep and Pragyan have, you've heard them, and hope that that's answered your question as well. But gentlemen, I also want to pick your brains on this other factor for England. The opening conundrum. We saw Australia struggle with their openers. David Warner came back not 100%, and by the time he started opening up, it was just too late in the day for Australia. England. Deep have this unique problem now. Rory Burns obviously sat out because of the birth of his first daughter. You had Dom Sibley and Zach Crawley. Crawley wasn't in the best of form. He had that mammoth double hundred against Pakistan. But Sibley showed he's a bit of a fighter, right? It's important for batsmen to come into the subcontinent and adapt technically in the middle as well. So what do you think will be the thinking around the England opening slots?
Rashi, let's just get one thing very clear. I mean, last 2-3 years hasn't been great for the openers. If you across the table, world around, I mean, India struggled with openers. England has, Australia without one has. I mean, Sri Lanka has. South Africa is the only. I mean, they still have. I mean, Elgar is one guy. Then Markram has come in. So, I mean, if technically, if you look at it, last 3-4 years hasn't been great for the for Test openers. So that's one. Secondly, I think, they had a very settled opening pair of Alistair Cook and Andrew Strauss. Andrew Strauss retired. They haven't found a replacement. And then Alistair Cook retires. So now you have, 2 openers, and they've played around too much. I mean, I don't know. I think they've played around 10 to 11 openers in the last 2-3 years. Ever since Andrew Strauss has retired, I think they've got on 12, 13 openers at the try side. Hamid came here to India, Jennings, Burns, and Zach Crawley has opened. Sibley, Joe Denley has, I think, opened as well. So there have been a lot of these openers coming in, but and they've struggled. I mean, in Sri Lanka, because the other important thing is, as an opener in England, you don't get to play a spinner straight away with a new ball. But when you come to subcontinent, you play a spinner with a new ball. I mean, Lasith was bowling with a new ball in Sri Lanka. Right, in India, you will have someone like Ashwin maybe bowling with a new ball. So you're not used to coming from England. You're used to playing seamer, swing bowling with a new ball, and suddenly as an opener, you come and the first delivery you have to play is of a spinner. It can be very, very difficult, and that's where they kind of seem to have struggled, especially against India in the subcontinent.
Absolutely, but again, with Rory Burns back in the side, it's going to be a bit of a tough call for England, because his immediate numbers don't really inspire much confidence. But with his experience, especially in English first-class cricket, would you pair him up with Sibley and maybe get Crawley to bat at number 3? That leaves a very vulnerable batting lineup. But also the fact that Joe Root is not very keen on batting at number 3. He's happy batting where he is, and he's done remarkably well. And the Sri Lanka tour is just, he would not want to move back up to number 3. No best again there.
Yeah, absolutely. As Deepai said, if you see all the teams, they have been facing the challenge of getting their top 3 more or less sorted. So that's what England needs to decide what they have to do. But I'm very sure they should not be disturbing Joe Root there, someone who's been getting those runs. We have seen what happened with Virat Kohli. He tried to come, try to shuffle his batting lineup, and we saw his numbers the way he. The point is, when someone is batting at a number and he's been delivering and doing good for the team, let him bat there. Don't change his number just because of his form. Things may change, and it is a very important series. All of us know. Because anything that happens, it is directly linked with the finals of Test Championship. So it's very tricky. And as far as I know, England will not try and do anything which will affect their chances. They will try and put everybody in a comfortable position where they can give their best.
And Deep, that is why the middle order becomes that much more important. I know we briefly touched on the middle order.
That is going to be the key for England. I mean, end of the day, like I said, Joe Root has to have a good series. He can't have an average series. So that's going to be important. But the top 3 is so tricky. I mean, obviously Zach Crawley, he prefers batting at 3, but he's been asked to open in the last series. Few series apart from the last as well, he's opened. Zach Crawley actually has batted every position from 1 to 6, I believe, in only 10 Test matches that he's played or something like that. 1 to 5 rather. So he's opened. He's played at 3, 4, 5. So yeah, but I think he's going to bat at 3, and then so on and so forth. But just throwing a spanner in the wheel. What if there is another very good cricketer who's available, a very good batsman who's available? That is Oli Pope. Oli Pope, I think Oli Pope rather. He's very compact. He's got a very good technique. He's attacking, plays the spin really well, uses his feet, sweeps the ball well. So I'm just thinking about this. You have obviously Rory Burns will play, and you have Sibley who scored a very important half century, unbeaten half century in the last test in Sri Lanka. So Sibley, Oli Pope, 3. Joe Root. I know Pragyan mentioned and kind of agree with him as well. But Joe Root at 3, Ben Stokes at 4, Ollie Pope at 5, 6 comes your Joss Butler, 7 maybe Moeen or someone. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind that batting orders either, because
So Ben comes after Ben Stokes comes after Joe.
Yeah,
Joe Root.
so Ben Stokes at 4 or Ollie Pope at 4, but put a left-hander at 4, Ollie Pope at 5, and then 6 Joss Butler, 7 you have Moeen, or could be Moeen at 7, or Wokes at 7, because Wokes bats at 7 in England. So I mean, ideally speaking, like you said, Pragyan, it's kind of straightforward. Zach at 3 and Root at 4, but I'm saying if you want to accommodate someone like Ollie Pope can still bat at 6 and Joss Butler at 7 instead of Moeen Ali. But again, this is a second option.
Yeah.
Right.
I think first test they won't do too many changes. They'll just go with a traditional team.
But
And
the problem is Joss Butler is not available after the first one. So so this is going to be a very tricky one. I mean, every test match they will have changes and rotation and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's very interesting. I try and figure out from the English players, and I'm sure we all will. How does it affect this whole rotation thing? I'm sure it can't be easy.
It affects, really affects. Unless you are someone like Anderson or Stuart Bird, they have played lot of cricket. One fast bowler is 34, the other one is 38. So you need to rotate. That is where it is very important to have your bowlers ready. These two guys, especially with the experience they've had. But in India, it is difficult, because if you see the Indian team, we have everybody who are 32, 33, and they've not played that much cricket. They've not played cricket. If you see England and Australia, the amount of test cricket they play, if you compare it with India, in a calendar year, we are much lesser than
17. This year they're playing 17
This
test
year they're playing 17 to the lead up to the World Test Championships. Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, in fact, that was my next segment. We wanted to discuss the rotation around Broad and Anderson, and since we are on the Pacers, we're just going to drift a little from the topic here. We've discussed England's opening conundrum. We've discussed the spinners. I also wanted to come to you, gentlemen, on the impact the English Pacers will have, because you obviously touched upon Jofra, you've talked about Broad and Anderson. But here's a quick viewer question. It's on the India Pacers. And Pragyan, if you want to take that, Arnav Sharma is asking, why do you think Indian Pacers have started doing so well on Indian pitches of late? What is your take on that? Both Pragyan and Deep, but before that, Pragyan, if you can take that.
Indians, I think they have been doing well. If you since we have seen, we always were good at having that reverse swing, and then with the new ball, if the ball is not doing much, we straight away used to think of having the spinners in. There are two things you get out of it. One, the spinners in subcontinent can get you wickets. And as Deepai was just telling us, that their batsmen, they're not used to facing the spinners with the new ball. That is one thing. And then the ball gets old. And once the ball is old, at times you can maintain the ball well, because one side gets rough and straight away you will get the swing. If that isn't helping you, at times the ball can reverse depending on the condition. So these are the reasons why I've seen Ishant Sharma, Zahir Khan, they were very comfortable with spinners bowling ahead. And then when the ball starts moving, then they are too good of a bowler to just come and bowl there. And that's the reason I think all these guys have been doing well. And the other thing is, Our fast bowlers, if you see the bunch of fast bowlers that we have right now, they're all bowling quick, barring a couple of bowlers, they're all quick. And when you're bowling quick on a wicket, subcontinent wicket where there is less bounce, and bowling straight, so LBW comes in play. And when you're reversing, it becomes that much difficult. Uh, and also, I think this reverse swing is very important, and our bowlers have been using it very well. And that's the reason I was saying Anderson and Broad are also very important, how they use the reverse swing, because they have played in subcontinent, they know the conditions well. That is where they will come handy, and that's the reason they will be rotating these two guys.
Deep, good points there. But one point I'd like to make before you take that one as well, Deep, is that this is the first Test match in India after that saliva ban because of the COVID-19. How will that also impact the paces around both teams?
Definitely will. So that's another area of interest for me to see how after the saliva ban, the SG Test ball will reverse, and whether it will, I was watching the Pakistan series. And it didn't really reverse that much, the ongoing Pakistan series. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, that's something that is an area of concern or area of interest.
Pakistan, they play with Kokobura, right?
Yeah, that's right. So they play with Kuka. So that's the reason I said SG Test. How much that will affect?
Because SG is a totally different ball with the seam. It makes a lot of difference. SG ball,
I'm sure.
even if it's 50% maintained, 50% because of the scenario what we are having, without that saliva and all, even 50% it is maintained. I'm very sure the ball will do much more than the Kokobura ball. Because Kokobura ball, once the seam goes away and you don't maintain it, it's just like a normal ball.
I agree. So that's again, like I said, an area of interest for me. Just going back to the first question about Indian seamers, I think one of the biggest thing, and it has been well documented, is how fit the Indian bowlers have become. I mean, someone like Shami, you always knew that he has the skill set, the talent, the potential, but he had his fitness issues. But now he's not worried about his fitness. He's ready to play the whole series without a break. Ishant is fit. I mean, he's supremely fit. He's always been that way. But Ishant post 2017 is bowling fuller. So I think it's a combination of fitness, experience, because all these bowlers are experienced as well, and also the addition of Jasprit Bumrah, the sheer quality that he brings to the table. I think a big bonus that India has got, and that's one of the reasons. If you see the pitches, for example, the series against South Africa, the pitches weren't turners. I remember, was it the Ranchi or the other Test match where it was actually a green top against South Africa? There was decent amount of grass on the pitch. So I think that's the kind of confidence that individually the bowlers have and the team management have on its fast bowlers.
Right. We have another question from Dhruv Garg, but that has we've already discussed that. Why not Moeen Ali at number 3? We've discussed the opening situation for England and number 3. But gentlemen, before we quickly wrap up, England have obviously, the last series, if you look back, it was, despite the 4-0 difference, it was a well-fought series. You obviously had Alistair Cook as captain. That was his last series in India. You had Joe Root, in good form. You had Moeen Ali score 100 in the opening Test match. This whole situation around the England team, right? You look at the batting lineup. We've discussed the opening situation. We've discussed the spinners. We've discussed the impact that it faces, what they can learn from India. But what is that overall? What is that one thing that you've noticed about both of you from Sri Lanka, right? The differences from the past teams that have visited. What is the one threat perception that this England team presents as a whole, despite the lack of experience in these conditions? Deep, if I start with you, that one threat perception that could challenge India, despite your prediction to the series.
Yeah, for me, I think they have the squad, but it's just that they need to maximize, and it's a mental battle. And half the time you'd see a lot of the overseas, and especially outside Asia, countries coming to India, looking at the pitch and goes like, and I've heard it, with my own ears. Somebody's actually told me, morning of first day, he comes and looks at the pitch and says 3 days. right? So that's a mental thing. So I think one of the first things that any overseas team, outside Asian team, has to come and just get this out of the head, out of their heads, whether it's 3 days or 4 days or whatever it is. I mean, it is what it is. That's what you've got, and also to be very, very disciplined here, because as far as skills are concerned, obviously for these conditions, India's ahead of England as far as sheer skill is concerned. But you can maximize your skill with things like discipline, like what India did in Australia. I mean, they can take a leaf out of that book and do the same what India did to Australia. Be disciplined, just follow. I mean, have a proper plan and execute that plan with a lot of discipline and smartness. I think they still. I mean, listen, after India's series in Australia, I think I mean, everyone is. I mean, it's given hope to everyone, right? Whether you're a cricketer or otherwise. So I think I'm sure England will take a leaf out of that book and say, you know what, if India can do that in Australia with so many first 11 players missing, England can do that here in India against India.
Why not? We'd want to see a really entertaining cricket series. Pragyan, your take on this England squad as a whole after our SWOT analysis around the 3 or 4 departments. On a whole, your assessment of the squad.
For me, one man will stand out. That is Ben Stokes. He will be a man who will be very crucial, both with the bat and the ball. Bat, we know he can bat brilliantly, but with the ball, I'm saying, because the pace that he bowls at, that pace is very, very deceptive. He's not quick, and with those wickets, with those cracks that we have normally in India for spinners. So if we start bowling those cutters, he will be someone we should be looking forward to. He can make a difference. Apart from these guys, he will be someone who will create that balance for England, and I feel he can make the difference.
Right. So there you heard our experts talking about dissecting this England squad. We've talked about the strengths, weakness, the opportunities that England have, by the way, and everything that England are as a package. Oh. And they've also given their overall assessment of this English squad. All we can hope for is a competitive series, and obviously we would want. So,
Rajeshita, who do you think? Yes, who do you think will? Who do you think will be that X factor for England? Even if they have a single chance.
I agree with you. I think Ben Stokes, and I think Moeen Ali. I know he's playing first class cricket after a long time with red ball cricket. But I think it's the fact that he's such a good player against spin, and if he gets his off spinners on, I'll be a little wary of Moeen Ali, gentlemen, because of the fact that he has that ability to grind through and he plays spin so well. I'm not saying he stand out in the same league as Ben Stokes. Ben Stokes for me is number one, obviously alongside Joe Root. But I'm also going to be wary of Moeen Ali. If England suddenly decide that he could be the man to bat at number 4, if Joe Root agrees to bat at number 3, given the situation at number 3, so that is going to be a major push for England, isn't it? So yes, it's going to be fascinating. You've heard both the experts, Pragyan and Deep. They've also given you their figures to see where India can finish in this series, and if both their figures are met, we will be through to the World Test Championship. So that is going to be another thing to watch out for throughout the series. We keep bringing you news, interviews, obviously our views from Deep and Pragyan. They follow the game so closely, analyze everything so succinctly and perfectly for you. Before I go, do not forget to watch an excellent interview Boria Majumdar did with Kane Williamson, which is already live on Sports Today, and at 5 o'clock you get to catch Boria Majumdar for his updates at 5 with all his breaking exclusive news. Also, as always, thank you so much for joining Sports Today, and hope to see you soon tomorrow.